Forged with a passion for steel and an iron-like eye for talent. This is the Recruiter of Steel podcast. Blast right in 3, 2, 1.
It is bonkers to think we were knocking on the door of 2026. Recording this as we sit in Q4 2025 and reflecting on this past year, which has been immensely successful for American Dream Search. 150% growth as we sit right now. We're still chasing and knocking on the door of 200%, which was the goal, and looking forward to possibly getting there. But ultimately, super proud of the work that our organization has done. Super proud of our clients that have made some really great hires, some really great hiring decisions. Forever grateful for them and their business as well. And super happy for our candidates that have accepted offers that are remote, that have 20, 30% increases in salary, that have unlimited commission potential, that are with some fantastic logos. They're all doing really successful and super proud to be serving the steel industry. As I've mentioned before, I did not grow up in steel. I was not a part of steel before recruiting for steel. And it's been a great journey to be entrenched in this industry fully, working with the best of the best salespeople, working with some amazing logos, some of the top 50 service centers that you read about, some of the major mills, big players in the fabrication and stamping space. Super, super forever grateful for it. And 2025 is shaping up to be a record year as we predicted. But while I'm very happy for all the successes that we've had, I did want to share some lessons that I've learned this year. And one big takeaway, which I want to share with you all, whether you're in recruiting, whether you're in sales, whether you're a hiring manager, it really doesn't matter. It applies to anyone in the business world or in the steel world. And that is the power of pushing back and saying no. The power of pushing back and saying no. Now, why do I say this? So doing some reflection, right? We've had a lot of success. We've made the most amount of placements that we've ever made in a single year. We're at 150% growth in terms of revenue. Things are going well from a surface level standpoint, but there's always lessons in the pitfalls. And some of the instances where I've had to learn, I will share with you now, and I'll share with you why it's important as a recruiter, as a business partner, as anyone who's involved in high stake decision making, that you care about your clients and you care about your organization, to push back and say no. So the first thing, and this happened recently, which I'm not too happy about because it's the only one that happened this year, and I wanted to go away with a perfect record, but I guess we're not, is a candidate didn't make our guarantee period. When we work with our clients, we usually offer a 90-day replacement guarantee, which is when if a candidate, for whatever reason, doesn't work out in those first 3 months, we replace them free of charge. And so far, 99.9% of our candidates are doing great. They've lasted months. They're crushing it as we expected. But one candidate didn't make it. And they ended up getting an offer that was just too good to refuse and ultimately left the position. Nothing on the company, all good things to say, it just was too tough to pass up. And so you really can't fault the individual for that, right? And you really can't fault the company for that. But what I think about when I reflect on what could I have done to prevent this or to make this situation less likely in the future, right, is I always had in the back of my mind that this wasn't the number one choice, right? This was a client where we submitted probably about a dozen, which is a high number for me. Usually I like to be more of a sniper headhunter, right? You'll get about 3, 4, 5, maybe great exceptional candidates that are worthy of interview, that are in line with your qualifications and what you're expecting. But I'm not a resume pusher. I don't send, dozens and dozens of resumes because that's not what you hire me for, right? You hire me for the best of the best. So we supplied this client because they had a great opportunity with probably a dozen very exceptional candidates, exceptional salespeople, exceptional even from a purchasing background in some cases, for what they were looking for. And I'm not going to say who the client is or who the individual is, but I want to share the experience. And so we got the notification that they left probably about halfway into that guarantee period. They got the offer, they accepted. And in the back of my mind, I thought, you know what? I wasn't sure if this was the right person from the get go. Now, they were qualified for the job. There was a reason we submitted them, but there were other individuals that were passed up that I thought would have been a better fit. And my biggest regret was not pushing back when the client ultimately decided to go in a different direction, right? When you hire somebody like myself, a headhunter, recruiter, someone to bring on top talent, exceptional talent to help you grow as a business, sometimes it is necessary to push back, even if I'm not in your internal organization. Even if you put yourself in my shoes, if you just care about your clients or you care about your candidates, you want people to be in the right roles, you want your clients to have a sticky candidate that's going to be long term and grow. If you see a possible yellow or red flag, you want to speak up. And this was my scenario. There were a couple candidates, one in particular that was super, very interested in the role, had a business background that was relevant, had a background where he could bring business to the table. There would be a little bit of a learning curve on one of the ends of the qualifications needed, but ultimately the drive was there. And that's something that you can't teach. There were other candidates that we submitted to that I thought probably would have translated better with their book of business. I thought that was probably the case. With this individual, when originally asked to provide an expectation of what their output could be in the first 12 months, it was a little shaky. It was a little bit of not understanding what was possible on this side of the business. And again, I'm keeping very things generic here, but I'm trying to get a point across here. Usually, you know from the first conversation who the right guy is. That's just your gut instinct. Sometimes some people have it, some people don't. And when somebody's a little rocky or a little hesitant at first, that should usually set off some alarm bells. Why is that the case? And are we carrying them across the finish line because we like that individual or other aspects of them? Or are they having a full turnaround and now seeing the picture? With this candidate, I was a little bit uncertain that this was going to be the match made in heaven, right? They were a good fit on paper, but from maybe a personality perspective or from a grasp of that side of the business, I didn't know if it was the number one choice. And when we put our other candidate aside that I thought would have been a better fit, I regret pushing back not hard enough. So that is one lesson. If you see somebody that you think is going to be a great fit for the role, not only that, but has the drive and the passion for it, go with that individual. Most recently, a client that I was working with did make that decision, and it's panning out to be very successful. I'll leave it at that. Another situation that I regret is allowing a client to go months and months with having a poor candidate experience. Now, as a recruiter, as a headhunter, I pride myself, especially with American Dream Search as my company, on providing a white glove experience for our candidates and for our clients. It should feel like a first class experience with American Dream Search. This client didn't see things that way. And as we work with them, I always try to give folks the benefit of the doubt, right? I'm empathetic that way. I want to help people grow. But ultimately, this organization was doing a lot of things wrong. Number one, leadership was not on board with what they were looking for. One person wanted this experience, another person was looking for that. And then when it got to the final stages and they all got together, it all got discombobulated. So that wasn't working. Number two, communication was spotty. Feedback took days and days and days. There were weeks in between candidate interviews, weeks between learning what the feedback was from said interview. There were promises made that weren't kept, such as you should be receiving an offer on XYZ date, and then nothing happened. There was a little bit of too high of expectations. You can't expect somebody to bring a book of business over and make them sign a non-compete. That doesn't work or make sense. And while I appreciated the partnership that I had with this organization for the time that it lasted. It ultimately was not beneficial. We were not successful in over 12 months' time when we've had some stellar candidates in the process that should have been chosen or should have been given a chance. And ultimately, my regret was allowing the organization, after having repeated conversations about what needed to change, to keep involving candidates in that process. As a recruiter, you want to protect your clients and your candidates. And my biggest lesson from 2025 is to never allow organizations to provide a poor candidate experience, because ultimately that reflects on us and that reflects on the organization, right? So if we're going to continue to put great candidates forward to this company, that's not going to be good for us, and it's not going to be good for them in the marketplace when people talk. You need to give candidates a great experience, right? Regardless if you go with them or not, regardless of what end of the market they're in, it's very important that each candidate leaves your organization and your hiring process with a smile on their face, right? Knowing that they were given feedback, knowing that communication was there and that they weren't forgotten, knowing that the organization actually tried to truly listen to them, truly hear their experience out, and not use them for whatever business they might have had or whatever the case may be. So that client ultimately got fired, and my regret was not doing so sooner. And I would say going into 2026, we will be even more strict and contingent on not just how we vet our candidates, but how we vet our clients, right? You need to have a structured, concise interview process. You need to give timely feedback. And you can't have too high of an ask without being realistic. And that's something that we're going to drive forward more in 2026. Looking back, again, 2025, very, very successful. We're still in it, so there's still a lot to be done. And looking for some really exciting things going into 26. Some opportunities for those of you listening to maybe even play a role with American Dream Search. That's a little bit more than you may have had in the past. And I'm excited to announce that very soon, and potentially go into some new avenues as well that we'll talk about in the future. So those are just some lessons, and ultimately takeaway from this will be the power of saying no and the power of pushing back, right? If you're a recruiter, if you're a headhunter, a salesperson, a hiring manager, whatever the case may be, and your client's doing something that doesn't sit right with you or doesn't feel like the good decision for them or for you in general, push back, say no, do the right thing. And ultimately, your conviction should lead you to the right decision. So that's my takeaway from 2025. Very important to push back, do the right thing for your clients. If you're a recruiter, do the right thing for your candidates as well. And wishing everybody a successful wrap up to this year.
Thanks for listening to the Recruiter of Steel podcast. If you enjoyed our finished product, please subscribe and leave a rating. Thanks again, and we'll see you on the next one.